All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm calling this meeting of the Lower Allen Township Board of Commissioners to order. First order of business, proof of publication of this meeting is available upon request. And we start our meeting with a non-denominational prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. We pray this day to give thanks for all the many blessings bestowed upon our township. Watch over us who are entrusted with the administration of this township. Create in us the earnest desire to serve faithfully and permit us to experience the joys of noble service completed for our residents. Encourage cooperation from those who are served and from those who serve. Help us to use every willing service and every effort put forth for good government. Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance to help us as commissioners to make the right decisions. We ask that you aid our staff as they perform the daily tasks of running our township. And we request that you be by our first responders as they protect our residents and see that they return home safe at the end of each day. In your name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Commissioners, in our packets this week, we received our meeting minutes from the January 6, 2020 reorganization meeting, and I would hope everybody has had a chance to look them over, and I would be looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we have a presentation to Charles A. Clement Jr., our former district justice, and you would come up, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to make the motion first, and then we're going to come up and give the presentation. Excuse me. I'm looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-R03, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Lower Allen Township, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, recognizing Charles A. Clement Jr. for his years of service as District Justice for Lower Allen Township.
Mr. President, I'd like the honor to make the motion for my friend and mentor, Judge Clement.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kutz, and I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, Judge. And I'm going to give our presentation from the township, and then after that, I believe we have a presentation from Representative Delosier from the House of Representatives and Senator Regan from the Senate.
be able to do that and the ability to say, you know, it's not. And so we kind of have people that have interactions with and I'm very on behalf of the House, I want to say thank you for your service. We have many, many more things I'm sure to do. I'm sure that you will be around and have your opportunities to
Thank you.
And then also Senator Regan, so you have a presentation from the Senate.
Who is this guy?
So I might not be as formal. Chuck and I go back to a long time, 1975, when I was, I think, a 7th or 8th grader watching him play basketball. So you may not know this about him, maybe some of you do. Like, he was an amazing high school basketball player. Went on to play D1 basketball. If I go back, I mean, push the needle just a little bit further, I think we probably have a lot of people who are surprised to see me as a senator. But, you know, I graduated with his sister Colleen, and the whole family, just nice, really genuine people. Not certainly blood over the way Chuck recorded himself on the bench. Very fair to everybody. Always considered family situations, things like that. And I know from my experience in law enforcement is that the cops loved him too. The cops loved him and believed him. And that's why he continued, or probably could continue to be DJ for the rest of his life if he wanted to. And he'd probably be senator too, which I'm thank God he's not. So President Malone, thank you very much for letting me present to my good friend and longtime friend and an ally. I really see him as an ally. And I just will read one short passage here. Now therefore, the Senate of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania recognizes that Honorable Charles A. Clement Jr. for his years of loyalty and service proudly notes that he has demonstrated extraordinary commitment to the 9th Judicial District, offers best wishes for continued success in the years to come. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Your Honor, for all the service they've
It
given.
was an honor to serve, and I was always impressed with Lower Allen. You folks hire good people, you train them, the elected officials are wonderful. The police department, the zoning and ordinance folks, everybody comes prepared, everybody has a keen sense of fairness, and when the police are more merciful than me, I think that's a good thing. And that was my experience with Lower Allen Township. So thank you very much. It's been an honor to serve.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
One more, but yeah, first of all.
Yes.
I thought I was going to get a whipping this crowd.
Let's try and
I
get
had
your
nothing to do with the
Oh.
bridge. No opinion on the bridge.
So, you were here when I started. I wasn't here when you started. I've known one district justice my entire career, and now we have to break in another. But it's all been said. The fairness, we do love you. You know, it's not good to say, you know, when you're on the bench, but, you know, over the years, you've been nothing but fair. I think I've batted better than 500. So,
A lot better.
We would like to present you with this certificate of appreciation presented to the Honorable Charles E. Clement Jr. In sincere appreciation for your many years of public service, for considering all things, and for your actions in the interest of justice and in the spirit of judicial economy as Magisterial District Judge, District Court of 09-101. Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's one of my lines, judicial economy. Thank
Judge
you,
Chuck,
folks, very much.
please go around the podium.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You bet. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, folks. Take care.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Senator, for coming in. Representative. At this time, it's not on the agenda, but Vice President Black, we're going to just take a moment of silence, and then he has a couple of words to say about the late Mayor Reed. So if we can just take a moment of silence.
Thank you, everybody. For 28 years, from the time that Stephen R. Reed was elected mayor, I worked with him, so I became very familiar with him. He's a good person, and he got, like any creative person, he had some extreme highs, and he had a couple of bad low bumps. He believed in his friends, and that was his downfall. He gave contracts to friends on projects like the dam, like the incinerator, that they should not have accepted, and it hurt him. So I just want everybody to know that I knew the real Steve Reed, and he was a good guy. Thank you very much.
And, of course, we sent off Judge Clement, and I noticed coming in this evening our new district justice who came in at our reorganization meeting. So everybody, Judge Delosier, I still got to get used to that. But we got a good one. So the next item on our agenda tonight is audience participation. There's a couple places on the agenda, if you've come to our meetings, where you can participate as a resident or in our meetings. This is for any item that's on the agenda. So at this point, I'm asking, is there anybody tonight that wants to speak or comment on any item that's currently on our agenda? Okay, seeing none. Oh, yes.
I want to speak, but I'm not sure that it's on the agenda.
Is it regarding the Sheepford Bridge?
Yes.
Okay, there will be a point later in the meeting where you'll be able to speak on that.
Thank you.
You betcha. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. Any commissioner, staff member, or anyone else in attendance who would like to have an item on the consent agenda removed for further discussion can request so now. Is there a request for removal of any item on the consent agenda?
And, Mr. President, I would like to talk about the Public Works report. So if we just remove that, we can approve the rest.
Okay, so you want to talk about the Public Works report? Is there any other items that anybody would like us to temporarily or remove on the consent agenda for discussion? Okay. So should we go ahead and just discuss that item now? You want to take action on the rest of it? Then we'll take action on the rest of the consent agenda, which includes a couple of items. So we'll take action on the tax collector's December 2019 report, which I'll be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Hey, Mr. President, I just had one question. As I read down through, we were talking about the limiting the amount of brush brought to the Public Works. I have the misfortune of having in-laws living in Hampton Township who have lots of trees and shrubs. We are always taking a ride to their place to get rid of that brush, yard stuff. What constitutes a load? I mean, I'll leave it there.
Well, for a residential drop-off, it's whatever you have on your vehicle, assuming
Okay, so
it's
you-
nothing
so if
larger
you
than a
don't come more
pickup
than
truck.
4 times whatever we have is what we have.
Generally, what we're seeing is either a pickup truck or a wagon, a
Okay.
pull-behind wagon.
Okay. The county machine charge for using the horizontal grinder, do you know, Dan, if Hampton uses that grinder or they have their own? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure they use that. I don't know that any municipalities have their own in our area.
Okay, we've never been stopped. My wife and I have never been stopped at Hampton when we go out and take all this stuff out, so I was surprised that we had a limit. But Okay, thank you. I'm ready to move that we accept the department reports as listed on the agenda.
I have a motion to accept the department reports as listed on agenda under 7A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Under the president, I'm looking for a motion to approve the check register of January 17th, 2020 in the amount of $476,826.12.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. B, under number 8, I'm looking for a motion to accept a resignation from Michael Quenzer, full-time paramedic in the Emergency Medical Services Department, with the request to stay on as a part-time paramedic.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting this resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is C. I'm looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-R04, hiring Richard Dillon as a maintenance specialist for the Public Works Department, effective January 28th, 2020. This is a replacement, not an additional hire.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. On D, for D, motion, I'm looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-R-05, changing the title of MS4 Coordinator to Stormwater Program Manager and increasing the compensation for Rebecca L. Davis.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and Commissioner Holtzman, yes.
What's the increase?
What is it? Is that what the question is?
Well, you want to handle it?
Sure.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, the new salary would be $68,000 a year.
What's he making now?
55. Thank you. 55,740.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. President, I should have said this during the discussion. Anyone wondering about an increase such as that, Mrs. Davis has pioneered the stormwater program here in Lower Allen from day one. He's highly respected throughout the central Pennsylvania area. I've gone to several meetings where, when it comes to what's known as MS4, the stormwater issue, her name comes up. She's reached out and done a lot for other. So we were we have a commodity, and we were sorely underpaying her for what she knows and what she does, and we've expanded the department. And so I think that, so you have a little bit of an idea of why that kind of an increase took place. Thank you, Mr. President.
You betcha. Yep, and that decision didn't come lightly. Next on the agenda, this is where any business pertinent to the township you can bring up, make comment, or start discussion on. And we do try to limit the discussions to 15 minutes per person. When you do come up, we ask that you come to the podium. There's a microphone there, and just speak clearly into it so we can have a pure record and that everybody here can hear. So at this point, is there any business pertinent to the township that anybody would like to talk about? Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
President, also, if I may, we would ask that every speaker identify themselves by name and their address
You betcha.
for the record.
Yep, so if you'll just identify yourself by name and address.
Oh, can I just lay this on here?
Sure.
Is the mic on?
Okay. My name is Joan Blanker, and I live at 1942 Sheepford Road in Mechanicsburg. I have handouts for those that are note-taking that what I'm reading, I will provide you. And obviously, it is for Save Our Bridge. Hopefully, I'm not even speaking to the mic. Anyway, the township goals from your website, I'll highlight a couple. Protect all public and private property, both real, personal, and intangible, from physical harm. Provide and maintain public convenience and comfort. Provide and maintain property value and valuable economic conditions. Provide and maintain public recreation. Those are your goals. I have addressed to each of the commissioners and President and Vice President. We're asking today for you to be a friend of Sheepford Road Bridge. The bridge and the citizens in York and Cumberland County need your help. The goal is to find funding sources to restore the historic bridge and address the safety issues. There are residential Save Our Bridge signs in both counties. There is a Bridge on Sheepford Road video. Hopefully you have seen it. If not, you should. Yesterday, ABC News captured our story, Have a Heart, Save Our Bridge. And this morning, we were fortunate to have Fox News interview us, and it was aired tonight. We are actively gathering signatures to address the need and utilization by joining counties who commute on this precious bridge. You received a letter from me dated January 21, 2020, outlining some of the restoration justifications. Most importantly are the historic and safety concerns. There are two reports. I'm trying to do some homework and get some background of where we've been in the decision making. There are two reports. One, December 2017 Preservation Assessment Final Report, which is this. Another is 2019 York County Bridge Plan, which is this. There are several concerns in these reports that I would like to discuss with the appropriate staff at another time. But the main concerns lacking are the unique historic value of the bridge, the safety issues not addressed based on the newly installed pipeline, and the lack of community involvement in the decision-making. There was a joint community meeting requesting input for the local bridges back in 2016. The one finding of that final report stated that most attending residents requested Save Our Bridge. However, our voices appear to be ignored. Now we are actively petitioning neighbors, local businesses, and surrounding communities to support and work together to save our bridge. We just started with petitions, but to date, we have over 400 signatures and growing. As of today, I just received 50 more. We hope to have a resolution drafted by the townships to serve as the next step measure. There will be continued media coverage to highlight the need for this bridge. And finally, it's all about the money. There is an inspection happening this week, hopefully, to address what the immediate corrections necessary and how to arrive at funding. There is a proposal I found to construct a cul-de-sac with an estimated cost of $200,000. I question that funding and why that money is not being used for bridge restoration. The financial resources are available through traditional and other means like grants, sponsorships, GoFundMe page collections, and community contributions. We are requesting your involvement to listen and work with the community to save our bridge. I do have today copies of 400 petitions. We are getting them every day, and we will continue to collect. I would like to give you those. I would like to give you what I just read. And I would also like to let you know that this morning, I was also at the county commissioners with Commissioner Gary Alkelberger, Gene Fasci, and Vince DeFilippo, and I presented a similar letter to them. I'm asking everyone, Township, County, Cumberland, and York, to work together to make this happen, that we restore this bridge. Thank you.
Ma'am, if I may ask, what was the reaction of the Cumberland County Commissioners?
Very positive. I asked them. They did receive my initial letter, and they did read it. I went the old-fashioned way. I hand-delivered it and hard copy, and then I also emailed, and I can email your copies as well for convenience. They were receptive. They said that they would look into it, and I personally shook their hands and asked them to work with me, and that we would set another date to go and discuss where we go from here. But I really hope that all of you will constructively work between York County and Cumberland County. I personally have been knocking on doors, and I have been standing at the bridge waiting for people to cross and asking them to sign. Most people, I would say most people, do not know that this bridge is closing. And that's what we understand from this report, that it is going to close. We want to reverse that. It's needed, it's used. And the count that was secured maybe a couple months, I don't think was very accurate. I personally think I could count 200 cars, just stand there for a couple hours. And then obviously when there was the roundabout chaos, we had a lot of cars coming through. We still have box trucks driving over. We just had another 18-wheeler come down the road. So we really do have an issue with traffic and the weight of these vehicles. Fortunately, we're there, we see a lot of it we don't. But I just don't want the bridge to fall. And I really want and believe that everyone can work together in both counties. I know that York has the lead, but you also have a responsibility. I also know that you're kind of secondary. It goes up to the commissioners. But I think what I'm asking everyone is let's get it done and work together and no finger pointing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you want to talk to me separately, be more than happy to give you my time.
If I may, does any of the commissioners have any questions?
No, well, no, not a question, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that the responsibility for bridges is a county responsibility.
Well, I was going to ask the manager if nobody had questions up here regarding that, if Tom, if you would give a brief kind of history of what's going on with that, so everybody
Sure.
understands.
Yeah, I may ask Dan to tag team with me, but this bridge, it's a Phoenix bridge constructed back in the late 1800s and installed. The deck was replaced sometime, I believe, in the 70s or 80s with a steel grate. It has been downgraded, I guess, in weight carrying over the years. So right now, it's a 3-ton bridge. Mrs. Lenker is correct, or whoever said it, I'm sorry, Commissioner Black is correct. It is a county, York County. The counties own the bridges. Any bridge that crosses from Cumberland into York County, they kind of they alternate responsibility. This one happens to be a York County bridge. York and Cumberland County, they did hold a meeting several years ago to get people's input on that bridge, plus a couple of other bridges, including the Slate Hill Road Bridge. I don't know what happened internally at the county. I don't know. Mrs. Lenker contends that their voices weren't listened to, but I think it has a lot more to do with that. There's a lot more that goes into the decision. I don't know why they arrived at the decision they did. They ask us if we, what we thought about having, the traffic counts are, and I don't know how many, I know that they use equipment to count things going across, so I have no reason to doubt their count of 200 or 250 cars. But again, the way this works is if they decide, if they have to close the bridge to traffic because of the weight, they're going to divest themselves of the responsibility for maintenance. At that point, it's their decision on what happens to it. If we intervene and say we want to keep it for a pedestrian bridge, a bike trail, whatever it happens to be, we get to assume the maintenance responsibility. That's a cost I don't believe the township wants to take on. If there are funds available through grants or a crowdfunding type of thing, if the people that are interested in keeping this want to fund it, we don't have any. I don't think we have any issue. I don't personally with keeping the bridge there. It's not that we want to get rid of the bridge. It's really just a matter of it's York County's decision. So, if we want to, if the board, whatever you choose to do to support or not that, it's completely up to you, but I don't think the maintenance is something that we want to take on. Dan, am I missing anything?
No, I would just add, it's a bridge, it's covered by the national, the MBIS, National Bridge Inspection System, and every bridge is inspected every 2 years, and if it's weight posted, it's a minimum of every year. This bridge, they're down to about a 3-month inspection schedule, I think, because it's that critical as far as the condition goes. That's why it's being inspected again this week.
And may I add, as I understand it, the inspections being done over the years, nothing really has been improved. And this report really talks about the historic bridges and the lack of willingness to keep any of them. And I think we do have an issue with that. And also, there are a number of us that will be landlocked by the pipeline if, for chance, the pipeline would be in a hazardous condition. We could not exit from Sheepford Road, and the pipeline parallels Thompson Lane, and that would also not be an opportunity for us to leave the area. And with the bridge not being there, what I read in one of the reports was that we should just go through the fields to leave. And I have many neighbors that are elderly that can't even walk to their mailboxes. So I'm hoping that the pipeline, working with them, may be able to address some resources to help us there. And I know that it's your county, but I really hope that we're not going to be finger pointing. You do play a part. As I understand, a resolution has to be drafted from here to the county and moving that forward. Again, I'm not familiar with all of it, but I'm learning, and I'm willing to work with you to make that happen.
Are there residents in Fairview Township who are also promoting Save Our Bridge?
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
working with that? Since, Mrs. Lanker, I'd be the last person to want to get critical. I don't think there's finger pointing. I think it's a matter of legally, where's the money coming from? So if there's no interest from York County.
There is.
Okay.
There is.
Okay.
Every day, I'm getting at least, my goal is to get at least 16 names on the list. There's 16 names on that sheet. And my goal is to get 16 names every day. One day I'm in York County, the next day I'm in Cumberland County. And I would say most people that I've knocked on doors, they have no awareness that this is going to be taken away. I've had, standing down by the bridge, bikers coming by and stopping them because that's a great bike path. Same thing with walkers and runners. It is used, not just cars, but foot traffic.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, we do have representatives here from Energy Transfer, the pipeline folks. If the safety of the pipeline is an issue,
Well, that's
perhaps we should ask them to come up and.
Well, if they're here for that, that would be terrific, because they're in the county's presentation. That's one of the things that really stuck out to me. Of course, I think we have to look at public safety as number one here. And so if there's any way to address that, if they're here, I think they should come up.
Go back to your goals. They're on your website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Langford.
And please work with me, because you will be hearing from me again.
So you say they're here?
Yeah.
Somebody's here?
They're here.
Well, welcome to come up, folks. And just state who you're with and your name and all of that, yep.
So, good evening. My name's Joe McGinn with Energy Transfer, lead in Public and Community Affairs, and with me is Matt Gordon.
Hi, I'm Matthew Gordon, also with Energy Transfer. I am the Senior Director of Operations for the pipelines.
Joe, can you spell your name for the secretary?
Yeah, MC, capital G, INN. So, and I'll turn it over quickly to Matt, but in terms of kind of centering folks when you talk about the pipelines, Energy Transfer, a lot of folks better know Sunoco or Sunoco Pipeline is a wholly owned subsidiary of Energy Transfer. It's had pipelines throughout the state and kind of paralleling through Lower Allen Township for a number of decades, and moving anything from gasoline, distillate, diesel fuel, and what folks call Mariner East moves some of the Marcellus liquids from the Marcellus Shale, propane, ethane, butane, natural gasoline, those type of things, across the state to offtake points along the way. So as part of bringing those pipes into service, and I think the first line came into service on the natural gas liquid side back in 2014. Does that sound right, Matt?
The line was originally built and constructed in the 1930s and operated in that easement continuously and maintained continuously. But to Joe's point, it was converted to natural gas liquids in 2014.
Yeah, and about, I think it's 400, 500 feet just due south of us. So if you have kind of in parallel lines, you have the turnpike, right, our pipeline corridor, and about 500 feet south is the Buckeye pipeline, which is another pipeline system that moves products east and west across the state. So from a public safety consideration, you know, here, if there's questions from the board, happy to address them. You know, I've done a lot in terms of communication with various folks from the township, not just in construction of new lines, but in, you know, the operations of others and other training, things like that.
I think the scenario, whether it's hypothetical or not, the scenario that I think comes up in everybody's mind is in that area. Are you familiar with the geography?
Yes.
Back there? Okay. I think it's back there. If that's a dead end, let's say, down there, and there's no longer the access to go over the creek, and something happens to the pipeline in that area, the folks are concerned that they wouldn't be able to, you know, exit without having the bridge there. It'd be very difficult on, if you know where Thompson Lane is. And so I think the big concern is if something happens, and I think it all boils down to what's the likelihood of something happening, and is it really even relevant, and if it is, how relevant is it? Because I think at that point, our public safety folks here have to start addressing, you know, something there as far as a plan.
Sure. Yeah, so in terms of, I guess from a safety standpoint, I don't know, Matt, if you want to start with this, and I can kind of jump in terms of systems, likelihood, all of that kind of stuff.
I'm not sure how to quantify likelihood other than pipeline transportation is the safest form of transportation, hands down. Truck, rail, airplane traffic all have significantly more accident frequencies at a higher rate than pipelines do. It is the safest form of transportation for the products that we do transport. We are regulated by the federal government, Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, as well as the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. They do a lot of inspection and enforcement on behalf of the federal entities. We're talking about a pipeline that moves a non-corrosive product, in this case, liquid petroleum gas or natural gas liquids, if you will. But basically, it's the product's being transported in a liquid phase, and it's non-corrosive. So when we look at risk of a failure of a pipeline, we look at various factors that could cause a pipeline to have a leak. For this particular pipeline, the two things that are, and it's just national averages for these types of pipelines, the two biggest risks are third-party damage That's when, for example, a homeowner is working without a PA1 call, and weekend warrior, if you will, uses a backhoe and damages the pipeline. Yeah, sometimes professional contractors also neglect that step and will have accidents. The other most prevalent type of damage to a pipeline of this nature would be external corrosion. And I say external from the outside, not internal inside, because the products aren't corrosive inside the pipe. So, as I mentioned before, one of the pipes was built in the 1930s and continuously maintained. In the 1950s, pipeline systems started installing cathodic protection systems to prevent corrosion and corrosion growth. So we're not talking about new technology. And this particular pipeline and all three have cathodic protection systems and have been maintained with cathodic protection since the 50s. The new ones obviously were built more recently. But that's one of the chief things that is preventing corrosion from occurring to mitigate the risk around a corrosion failure. To explain how that system works, if you picture in your mind your car battery, often you have one terminal that gets crusty corrosion on it and the other one looks clean. Basically, we turn the pipeline into the clean terminal, and we have what we call a sacrificial anode or sacrificial metals that become the crusty terminal. We steal electrons from the sacrificial metal and drive that to the pipe. So again, the newer lines also have coatings, and the old lines have coatings on them as well that protect them from external corrosion. In terms of third-party damage, the regulations are very specific, and we exceed those regulations. We have a multi-point process that we use to defend those. We're a member of the PA One Call system and have been a board member for many years. We direct mail all the residents that live within a certain distance of the pipeline. I believe the brochure we pass around has the distance on there, but the federal government requires a minimum of 660 feet either side of the pipe that every resident gets a letter saying there's a pipeline in your neighborhood and how to identify it and how to identify it. We go much further than the federal requirements in terms of that mailing. We also put, and you probably have seen the yellow markers that mark the location of the pipeline and the easement to give a visual reminder for somebody on site, hey, there's something there. The government requires that we patrol that right-of-way 26 times per year, not to exceed 21 days. We actually patrol it twice a week, far in excess of the federal requirements, because it's so important that we make sure that people don't accidentally dig and hit that pipeline. We also have pipeliners on the ground responding to one calls every day, very close to this area. So from a third-party damage standpoint, those are a couple of the things we put in place to make sure that folks are aware before the pipe ever gets hit. It's about prevention rather than reaction.
That gets into just the safety piece.
Yeah.
And
No, go ahead.
ultimately, there's federal regulation through the Department of Transportation, PHMSA, through the state with the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. So our safety regulators, both in construction and then the operations and maintenance schedule for that. So to make sure all the things that Matt's saying are certain things that are regulation. They're not a permit. These are required to both build and operate lines, and meeting them, and as Matt said, in many cases exceeding them to make sure that those are safe.
Okay.
So
just
ahead.
For the sake of time here, I
Yeah,
appreciate everything that you're
Yeah.
saying, and I think the pipeline information part's great.
Yeah.
I think our residents are more concerned if something does happen.
Yeah.
How far does that probably come down towards the road that's going to affect them, where they could actually drive out, I'm assuming, or walk out or run out, right? So I don't know that we're going to get the answers tonight based on this great information you're giving us, but I just don't, I don't know that we're going to do that. What I would suggest is if there's information we don't have and our public safety folks don't already have this information, they should probably have what they need to understand the pipelines, which I'm sure they probably already have. What I would recommend at this point, and I do thank you for your time very much, is that the next step, it seems, in this is to have staff. I don't know, Mr. Manager, if this is you, but I have questions, before something would get started. And one is the report, and that's, unless somebody has questions for you guys,
Okay.
I think
I just
you
have
do.
one
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting not here but there, let's say Matt, one of the, what you call him, a weekend warrior, gets carried away, what kind of damage and devastating scenario can occur?
There's a gamut as to the size of the hole and how far the liquid can go. And when it leaves the pipeline, depending on the liquid, it can change to a gas phase, at which point the wind can carry it. So it's sensitive to wind direction and the concentration or the amount of liquid that
So
comes out.
evacuation may be something that would have to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we would meet and we would call the county dispatch, who would immediately get a hold of the local emergency responders. They're typically the first ones on scene, and one of their primary goals, and I don't want to speak for them, but is to establish a perimeter of that combustible gas cloud.
Yeah, and ultimately, whether it's propane, whether it's gasoline, right, these are all, we move flammable liquids, right? Their main purpose is to fuel our engines and heaters and all of that. So, that's all taken in course in terms of how do you manage it. In terms of doing that outreach with emergency responders, I think President Vallone, what you indicated, the companies engaged, not just here at the township, but in counties, Cumberland County, counties throughout the state, emergency responder outreach. We've done it almost on a yearly basis for the last 5 or so years. I know Matt and his group have a plan of doing it again in 2020, including definitely doing something in Cumberland County and engaging there, and in York as well, since we're right here on the border. Obviously, continuing to engage with the emergency response community, anything in terms of planning, and ultimately providing information so that communities, townships like Lower Allen, have whatever they need in place for, planning purposes, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The yellow signs.
Those signs are strictly warning signs. They're not actually physically connected to the steel under the ground. They just mark the location of the steel from the surface. And they often get hit by people mowing or, cars coming off the road. They snap off, our pipeliner comes out and replaces them. I'm sorry. With respect
That's not on
to...
the construction project side, so we can't answer that, but obviously, township, anything to do with construction will certainly work with us and hold us accountable to do what we need.
Yeah, I assume there's permits for that they have to honor, so.
Yeah, the pipeline folks, I will say, have been good about responding to those needs to restoring the things around the pipeline. So I would say, thank you, gentlemen. I would say at this point, we just make sure, we want to make sure that we understand what we need to do in the event there is a problem such as what Commissioner Shin just brought up. Let's say the homeowner digs something up and understand what kind of perimeter would have to be done and then how folks would get out if indeed the bridge wasn't there.
That's a standard ICS protocol that we use for any of the we would establish whatever the perimeter is based on hazardous materials calls. We would call the pipeline folks directly. They weren't already verified by us. Our planner has actually met with the pipeline folks a week or two ago, and we're actually working on what will probably be an annex specifically dealing with this to our emergency operations plan when the new plan comes into effect here within the next couple of weeks. It'll come before the board. So we understand that. We've not done as good a job as we could documenting the attending to the pipeline training, but we're gonna actually improve on that. Many of us have been in a previous life. I was in a bunch of them, so there's an understanding of public safety, like fire, what responding. But we'll continue to do that.
Yes.
Janice Links, 2036 Union Road. I hadn't planned on talking about the pipeline tonight, but I feel like I should mention that We do appreciate that the pipeline attempts to follow the regulations, but it has been consistently fined for not following government regulations. Just recently, $2 million in Pennsylvania alone. And though pipeline accidents, thank God, are rare, you can tell that to the people. And I'm not going to name the states where they recently happened because I might make a mistake. I'm sure the pipeline people know where those places are. And thank God they're rare. But it's certainly something to be considered. They are currently under investigation by the FBI. Governor Wolf's office is under investigation by the FBI for the permitting process. So I think you could know why we might be concerned about that issue. I'm glad to hear that the township is working on an emergency plan for the pipeline, and I'm glad to hear that you acknowledge that we should keep better track of who has attended, because I found that the township does not actually have a record of who attended the pipeline training, and neither does the county. And so we've been forced to contact the pipeline to find out information about who has actually attended. And we're not asking for names, but just the role in the township that they played. It would seem to be vitally important to both the county and the township to know who those people are if, in fact, an event happens. So thank you for that. As far as the township's involvement, and I understand the worry, and I totally understand it's not your decision, but a plan was presented for your input. And we gave our input at that meeting, and very vocally. I'm not sure if you guys have given any of that input. We still have unanswered safety questions about how it was determined that police response time would be adequate. The other day, I drove from the golf course on Lisburn, and instead of turning down Forge Road, I continued to where I would have to go if the bridge is closed. It is quite a detour. Emergency vehicles on that road would have an issue, and I know that the bridge is not designed at this point to hold anything other than police cars, but I've also been told that there are times when overweight vehicles will cross a bridge, and that is in the event of a police car chase, a shooting, an officer in trouble. I hope it's not our police department that has an issue because our bridge is closed. It affects not just the residents, but your own force. And on an aside, you know what, I'm not going to bring up the cul-de-sac right now because I would like to say something else, but I hope to discuss the cul-de-sac at some point. The one that's going to be required is way larger than Lower Allen currently allows, so at some point. But I did want to take a moment, Commissioner Cutts, for thanking you for coming down to our event yesterday. Have a Heart, Save Our Bridge. We consider it to be a successful event, and I know that the people who were there really enjoyed talking to you and being able to express their thoughts and feeling like there was an outlet for them. So I really thank you for coming down for that. And just one other thing. On Wednesday, the bridge will be closed for a day, or maybe it will never open again. During the time of closure, however long that might be, I hope you won't forget about the residents of Sheepford Road and Thompson Lane. I hope you will make sure that all emergency departments are alerted to the closure. Between Sheepford Road and Thompson Lane, there are many vulnerable residents. A woman of 95 who lives alone and no longer drives. A couple in their 80s, one of whom's having heart surgery on Wednesday, who live with their disabled son. And many other vulnerable neighbors. In the case of an emergency, I hope it can never be said that they would have gotten there on time if the bridge was open. Please don't forget about us. Please let everybody know that we are, in fact, a vulnerable community right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, what I think we should do, staff has probably already started, gathering some information on this. I mean, I have my own set of questions just based on when the county was here and made a presentation, they threw numbers out. So, I mean, I don't know where we begin when the numbers seem to be disputed, even in the report that you dropped off at my home, and I turned in here, the numbers are different. And so I think, and that's not the only question I have, there's a lot. So I think that at some point we should probably make sure that we have the correct, as legitimate as information we have so that we can make informed decisions moving forward. So I would just ask that the manager work with whoever the representative here is, just so that we can get concrete information so this body can make a good informed decision in the end. And I don't know how long that will be, but I think it's going to take some time to get the facts in, at least the facts that, we can rely on, or think we can rely on, to start making decisions as to what we're going to do, whether it's send a letter of support. But I know some of the questions I have can't be answered tonight, like what is the cost, and I don't think anyone here can really answer that, but I think we should understand where their numbers came from, what the numbers from 2017 in this report that came from, I guess it's PennDOT, or that study came from, which is significantly different. So I think we have to try to figure out what the real numbers are before we can start making some decisions, and how that's going to affect us. There were some assertions in a letter that I received, I think all the commissioners received it, that property values are going to go down if the bridge goes away. Well, I'd like to know where that information comes from, and then what the real percentages are, and where that source is, so that we can understand and weigh the cost benefit of taking any action that we take. Right, and I think that kind of information we should probably get in hand as to where it's coming from and what, so we can understand the numbers. Do you have something, sir?
Hi, good evening. My name is Eric, E-R-I-K, Arneson, A-R-N-E-S-O-N. My wife Beth and I moved to Lower Allen Township a year ago. She keeps reminding me I keep getting it wrong. A year ago, November. We moved here from Cornwall Borough in Lebanon County, and Cornwall Borough was just a wonderfully run municipality, and I didn't know a whole lot about Lower Allen Township when we moved here, but it's obvious that this township is equally professional in its operation. So first, I just wanted to start by saying thank you to the commissioners for serving. I know that it is often a thankless job. You guys get pulled in a lot of different directions. You're not making a whole lot of money for being up there. So thank you for doing that. I also want to specifically point out that in my view, Helen does an absolutely outstanding job for this township. So to the extent that that's useful information to you, Helen is fantastic. I live at 1950 Sheepford Road. I echo many of the thoughts that Joan and Janice shared. And I just wanted to point out a few things to amplify maybe some of what was said, and I will try to, in the interest of, we talked about judicial economy earlier, I'll take administrative economy into account here and be very brief. When I came here tonight, Google Maps showed me that the quickest way to get from this building, from my house to this building, was to go over the bridge, come around Old Forge, and come around that way. And it was only a few minutes faster, but we all know that sometimes in certain situations, a few minutes difference in response time can make a big difference. And Joan mentioned the idea of a resolution. Mr. President, you mentioned the concept of a letter of support. And I recognize it's not the township's financial responsibility. I fully understand that the township would have very serious concerns about taking on some of those financial responsibilities in alternative scenarios. But I think that putting together a letter of support or a resolution indicating this board's support for continuing to maintain that bridge, to rehabilitate that bridge, and continue to keep it operating as a bridge that supports vehicular traffic is something, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's certainly something that I know I and my wife Beth would appreciate very much. And I know you'll give that serious consideration, and I thank you in advance for doing that. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Well, we had a lot of good discussion on this tonight, I thought, and a lot more information came out. And I think at this point, I think we have to start getting information in, and it's probably going to be a slow process, just how things like this work, I would imagine. But I think in conversation with many people in the township and my fellow commissioners, I can assure the folks that are in favor of keeping this bridge that all of us are heart, and we all feel we would be in favor of, we would not be in favor of getting rid of the bridge just arbitrarily. Nobody would. So I think that when we get the information in, we can start figuring out what direction we want to go, if we're going to give support or not. But I think it's fair that we take some time and get some information. Okay. So, you betcha. Does anybody else have anything for the pertinent to the township this evening? Okay, we're going to move on. Number 10 is our township engineer has a series of items this evening.
Yes, good evening. Item A is personnel action. Mark D'Agostino, who's been with the Highway Department for a number of years, was appointed to the position of Highway Superintendent last July. He has come to the end of his 6-month probationary period in that position, and it's recommended that he be appointed to that position in regular full-time status.
I make that motion, Mr. President.
Okay, I have a motion to move Mark D'Agostino from probationary to regular full-time employment status in the position of Highway Superintendent in the Public Works Department effective immediately.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Ed. Are there any further, Thomas, excuse me. Are there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. B is discussion with possible action on approving payment number 4 for the SSM Industries. Want to talk about it, Dan?
Yeah, this is a progress payment on the addition to the Public Works Building. SSM Industries is the plumbing contractor, and this is their request number 4 for the amount that you see there.
And this was in our packet, and everybody had a chance to review it, I hope. Otherwise, I'd be looking for action on this, I would assume, tonight, right, Dan?
I would move to approve payment number 4 for SSM Industries Incorporated, excuse me, the amount of $21,483.11 for plumbing construction on the Public Works Building addition project.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, Dan.
Okay, item 10C. This is relative to our NPDES stormwater permit, the MS4 permit. We have a Chesapeake Bay pollution reduction plan that we're required to implement. That plan includes retrofit of 10 stormwater basins. 2 of those, we are getting close to completing the design on those projects. That would be the one that is at the Public Works facility on St. John's Road. The second we refer to as Sheepford Crossing West Basin. That is at the intersection of Sheepford Road and Lisburn Road in the Sheepford Crossing development. We have received grants that will fund a significant portion of both of those, ironically, from the fines that were issued to the Mariner 2 pipeline. That's where the grants came from. Since we are coming up to getting ready to complete the design of those projects, we're asking for authorization to advertise bids for those 2 projects.
So I think we can take action on this tonight. Looking for a motion to authorize staff to advertise for these 2 proposed projects.
And I would make that motion.
I have a motion. And I have a second.
And I have a question.
And a question.
Dan, I think you've answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This is one of the projects that we got a grant to do.
For both of those projects, there were two grants, one for each of those projects. One was for $60,000 plus. The other was $122,000 plus.
Yeah. All right, good.
And I,
Okay.
Dean, one question.
Yep, go ahead.
Dan, the money for the grants, budget-wise, and forgive me for not being here for last year's budget process, were we anticipating grants through the budget process, or is this kind of additional money and that's kind of an extra $100,000+ that we'll have now?
Well, because these projects are all part of the stormwater program, they're part of the budget that comes through the stormwater fee and the stormwater authority, so they're not in the general fund budget. So, I mean, it's good that we have the extra money. It will be a benefit to the stormwater fund, but it won't be extra money in the general fund budget.
Was the Stormwater Authority anticipating the grants?
They knew it was a possibility. You know, you can never count those, you can never count the grants till the check clears. But, there was ample budget if we did not get the grants. So having the grants will provide additional margin in the balance in the Stormwater Authority budget.
That good? Okay, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next.
Okay, item 10E, this relates to the 2020 street pavement resurfacing project. We do this contract every other year, and 2020 is one of those years. So we'd like to get out early in the season to get bids out. Even though the work may be done in July or August, we'd like to have that lined up. It's a good time, contracting-wise, to bid earlier in the season rather than later. So we'd like to get authorization to get that advertised as soon as we get that prepared.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that we authorize staff to advertise and solicit bids for the 2020 street pavement resurfacing project. We got new teeth.
Second. And a second. Is there any discussion? I just have a question on it, Dan.
Yes.
This is all the separate funds budget that we approve, correct? Where is this from the liquid, like a lot of it comes from the liquid fuels?
Actually, all of it does. It's all in the liquid
All of it
fuels
does.
or highway aid budget, yes. So
Okay,
again,
so this
it's
money-
not in the general fund budget.
Right, this money comes in, the revenue from this comes in from liquid fuels and other sources, not taxes, correct?
Yeah, it's 100%
Right.
from that liquid
Right.
fuels
Oh,
check we
100%.
get from the state.
Okay,
Yes.
terrific. Any other questions?
Call for the question.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Yeah, you want to go back to D? Did we do? I think we skipped.
Oh,
I think we skipped
I
D.
apologize, yes, I
That's okay.
skipped D, yes.
Aaron was getting ready to throw something at me.
You have to be louder. 10D, yes, we've been working for a period of time now on the reconstruction of the Fun Fort out at LACP. This is the portion that was not reconstructed after the fire, but is still the original construction that's getting close to 25 years old now. The design has been completed. We're just finalizing the construction documents now. Again, we have a grant that is proposed to pay for 50% of that construction cost. So we want the authorization to advertise those as soon as we complete the finalization of the construction documents that's being done right now.
Okay, I'll be looking for action on this too, I would assume, tonight.
Yes.
Mr. President, I'll move that we authorize staff to advertise and solicit bids for the Lower Allen Township Community Park Fund Fort reconstruction project.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then F.
Okay. Item 10F, also as part of our NPDES MS4 permit for the Public Works facility, we're required to have a preparedness, prevention, and contingency plan. Which essentially, if there's a spill or another emergency of some sort, we need to have this plan in place for the Public Works facility. And as part of the permit, we're required to update that every year when we review the permit documentation. So that was the copy of the proposed updated PPC plan was in your packet for your review and approval, or if you have any questions on it.
Are there any questions on this from anybody? Okay. So I'll be looking for a motion on approving this updated preparedness and prevention contingency plan.
I would make the motion to approve the update to the preparedness, prevention, and contingency plan for the Public Works facility.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and the last two items, 10G and 10H, are both just for discussion for your information tonight. They will both be on the next agenda for action. These are routine increases in financial security for improvement within subdivisions or land developments. The first, SLD docket 2017-12. This is Arcona Phase 2.1, 2.2. This is the apartment section back between Strong Road and the railroad that is nearly complete, but there will still be some extension on the security. The second is SLD 2005-22, Heights of Beacon Hill Phase 3. There are still 2 small lots in there that homes have not been constructed on, and we're holding security just for the sidewalk for those 2 lots. So both of the holders of those securities have been notified of the 10% increase. They both expire on February 11th, and your next meeting is February 10th, so it will require action that night.
Okay, so we'll see that then.
Yes.
Got it. Is that it, Dan?
That's all I have.
Okay, does anybody have questions for Dan regarding any other issues?
The only thing I'd like to ask, Dan, on the Heights of Beacon Hill Phase 3, is there an owner in place that can be assigned to?
Well, the owner of the lots is the one that is providing the improvement security.
Right, but there is someone in
Yes.
ownership now, correct?
Yes.
I just have a question about the lights on the roundabouts. I've gotten a lot of good comments that they're relieved now, especially some of my older neighbors are really relieved that it's lit up well, and it is lit up well. Good. And I know that really isn't our responsibility to get those in there, right? Right. So, do you have an idea when the next set's coming in?
Yeah, I believe it's the first week in February, the light poles are due to be delivered.
Okay,
And
so
it'll be some time until they get them.
Sometime in middle February,
Yeah.
you'll see that lit up?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. All right. Okay, thanks, Dan. All right, public safety, Dave, you're up.
Mr. President, a number of items here before you. 11A, the board will recall that you had given permission for us to hire, transition from an EMT position to another full-time medic position. That position was never filled. We had someone interested in it who then declined to accept the full-time. So we would like the board permission to actually advertise to establish a pool of possibilities for a full-time paramedic. So that's all I have.
And that's for just the one?
Right.
Okay.
That would fulfill the complement.
Okay, right. So, does anybody have any questions? Want to start?
No, we had no intention to do that. In this particular case, we just needed to fill schedule because we didn't have sufficient part-timers. So we have the right complement if we can do this, but there's no plan to take away from the full-time EMTs in order to replace them with
Okay, so you're going to even out EMTs and paramedics?
I don't think it's going to be evened out at all. I think we're going to have more EMTs than we are medics.
Okay.
In the full-time area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, do you happen to know, with this addition, to get to our full complement, where that puts us, if you happen to have the paramedic EMS breakdown, or excuse me, paramedic EMT breakdown off the top of your head?
Full-time, once we would hire this position, full-time paramedics would be 4. And we currently have 7 full-time EMTs.
Now, Tony and Dave, if you'd like to as well, does that get you where you would like to be in terms of providing ALS service?
I think that is where we need to be. That's why we came back and asked to take that part-time, or rather the EMT position, and transition it when we had a full-time EMT leave. But that's not a strategy moving into the future. So we'll have sufficient people to schedule. We supplement them with part-time as well. We have a pool of part-time paramedics, and we have a pool of part-time EMTs as well.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Dave, how are we coming along with our chase truck?
It's operational. It's just it depends upon schedule as to when it can be fielded.
Our chase truck is up and running?
Yeah.
It has been since September.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And it's run 3 shifts?
What?
No, it's not running 3 shifts yet. As we have staff to field it, we'll field it, but it's not something that we're just running. Ooh, sorry. It's not something we're running all the time. It's used on certain shifts, depending upon scheduling, largely.
It has to do with scheduling?
Right.
more as it stands now? Gotcha.
With the current schedule matrix, the chase truck is only in service when we have a short staffing situation, which allows us to break up EMTs and medics and still provide service to the community. But it would cost us more, actually. We'd have to add additional FTEs, which we don't want to do, to put the chase truck in service all the time. And the call volume isn't there yet. But we have it as a supplement to the fleet, which is what it's needed for at this time. And if we're going to go into community paramedicine, it'll also be used for that as well.
You don't have the paramedics, you mean, to do 3 shifts?
We don't do 3 shifts anymore at all, but no, they're not using it every day, no. They're only using it when staffing demands.
Well, we're doing full schedule.
Right.
There's paramedics scheduled 24/7.
Right.
7 days a week. But what that truck was going to do was to be able to supplement the current, and we looked at the schedule, and we actually made a little bit of an adjustment, and we're working on something we can come back to the board and report on that talks about that whole thing as we move into this year. So there was one strategy that we talked about that we don't think, looking at the numbers, as we're looking at the numbers in terms of what's payables, that economically doing two paramedics, one on a chase truck and the other one on a MICU, doesn't make economic sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so that's why we're not running it to the extent that we had thought we might, but it's still being utilized. Yeah, so it's still there as a viable thing. And we have the equipment to staff it, for it to operate.
So I'm a civilian. What do you use a chase truck for?
They call the ambulance and they have to. They're involved when they have to.
Well, why do we have to use it sometimes and not other times?
That's why I'm not understanding.
Well, you don't understand it from a professional standpoint. I don't from a civilian.
I don't see why they're running a paramedic in a mixture in an ambulance and not in the ambulance. Okay, I'm not interested in
Okay. Talk to you later.
All
Talk to you
right.
later.
Okay. So I kind of lost track of where we are.
So we're looking to possible action on authorizing the advertising for the full-time paramedics.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. B, Dave?
Okay, 11B is a discussion and possible action for Resolution 2020R 606. Yeah, 06. Hiring Michael Hauser as a full-time paramedic for the Emergency Medical Services Department, effective February the 10th, 2020. Mike Hauser would replace Mr. Quinzer, who just submitted his resignation. So Mike Hauser, just for history purposes, was one of the Life Team medics that was here for quite some time. He's currently employed by the Life Team. He will be changing from his Life Team employment to full-time employment here. He was well-respected when he was here as a Life Team paramedic. He's a good provider. We think he'd be an excellent add, and he's interested in making the career.
He's a part-timer now.
He is a part-timer now, yes.
Mr. President, if you're looking for action, I would make a motion, Resolution 2020-R-06, hiring Michael Hauser as a full-time paramedic with the Emergency Medical Services Department effective February 10th, 2020, and appreciate the staff memo here highlighting his 31 years of experience and recommendations from the public safety director. Second.
So there's a very high demand for paramedics in EMS right now. Is it typical that when we hire somebody full-time, that they are working part-time elsewhere at this point? And do we consider that when we're looking at who we're hiring? I'm just imagining, there's got to be some burnout rate in the job as well. And depending on, where they commute from, let's say, or whatever, does that ever carry
I think
any problems along with
Attorney
it.
can jump in, but I think almost all full-time providers, no matter who they work for, also probably work part-time someplace else to supplement their salary.
Okay.
They're not the highest salaries. One of the benefits in what the board approved in terms of your salary structure was, it's one of the reasons why Mike is able to come over here from what he was making and not lose money,
Yeah.
essentially.
I understand. I was just trying to understand the whole system a little better.
He lives locally.
Yeah, he lives locally.
I don't know exactly where, but, you know, he worked, well, he worked here, but then he also, when we dissolved that relationship, he went back to work for Life. So he works there currently.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I have a motion and a second on the floor on this question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next.
This is discussion and possible action on proposed job description for full-time and part-time PSOs and the fire administration clerk, and a request to advertise for those positions. In your packet was the job descriptions of all three of those positions. It was modifications to the full-time public safety officer with some with a new job description for the part-time position. Since we don't have that, it was approved by the board to look into that as part of the ad hoc committee. And then also a new job description for the administrative clerk for fire. Again, if you have any questions, the fire chief and the fire captain and I and members of the fire department worked on the clerk position. We also took a look at the proposed PSO position, so we'd be happy to, any of us, to answer questions that you may have about any of those jobs.
Yeah, but I think the first couple of job descriptions were pretty vanilla, not a whole lot different from what you're doing now. So I'm concentrating on this new position that we've added this year, the administrative clerk, fire, which will be the last one that we receive. Essential functions, assist daily administrative operations of the entire organization to include Lower Island Fire Company #1 and Lower Island Firemen's Relief. Is Lisburn up nothing to do with this? Where's our fire captain? Fire captain here? No? Okay. There he is, right behind you there.
We discussed that Lisburn Fire Company.
Can you use the mic, please? When you watch it, all you hear is...
Yeah. Okay. We did discuss about Lisburn Fire Company, but primarily they have Julie out there, and also they do a lot of the fundraising activities out there. A lot of the administrative fire or operational functions are pretty much taken care of by the volunteers out there, and they have not expressed any interest at this time to assist. With the exception of some training things, we did put a part in there concerning training because PSO Landis takes care of the duties of training officer for both fire companies.
This is truly clerical, though.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What cash receipts is he or she going to be handling? Is this donations to the like if I'm a fire, if I join it's not ambulance, it's just fire, right?
Yes.
So if I want to be a member of the fire company, I have to pay a dues, or what's the cash handling that you want to do?
It's basically, do you want to address that, or? Okay. Fire chief's a little bit more familiar with the administrative side of the Lower Island Fire.
I'll listen to my neighbor anytime.
Well, the term cash, not everything is actually in full cash, but checks and stuff like that. Donations, we get refunds back from different sources, and especially the relief, we get the annual allocation from the state, 2% from the fire insurance taxes that funds the Relief Association. That was one of the several duties that we were looking at this position, to assist our treasurers with some of the leg running of runs to the bank, deposits, things like that. helping track to help take some load off the volunteers that are currently doing that. It's not to replace the treasurers, but to assist them.
What statistical analysis would this person be conducting?
Well, the short answer is varied, but as you recall, the ad hoc committee meetings we had this past year, we did a lot of data mining to look at different angles of the data, and we want to make data-driven decisions, not assumptions. So we went back through many years of reports and looking at, staff ages and staff count and the call volume, the types of calls, where those calls are. And it took a lot of staff time in doing that. And it was myself, Chief Williamson from Lisburn, and Captain Worth also doing a lot of that data to compile it into views that made sense versus just being a spreadsheet or a report like that. So that's, again, another function we saw this position could assist us with, because that was many hours of work, because our data sets right now do not have reports to give us some of those pictures. So we have to do some data mining, and that, again, clerical help to pull that out would be very helpful going forward to make decisions.
Sounds like a very heavy position. I just have one more, I promise. I'm not
Sure. Happy to answer any questions.
Coordination of fleet management. Now, this person, the qualifications, high school diploma or equivalent. Coordination of fleet management sounds like a big job. Is this person, what kind of experience is this person have?
Well, I would caveat that it's assist with. We have a person that has taken over those duties for our fleet management from Bill Zorn, and that's our Deputy Chief, Tim Shealy. So he stepped up to do that, and he's mechanically knowledgeable and so on. But there's a lot of administrative stuff that goes with that. That's following up on invoices and getting quotes for work to be done, scheduling, calling to make calls. When something gets damaged, calling a particular vendor to schedule a repair of the air pack, the truck, and so on. Where we saw this person that Chief Shealy could lean on and say, hey, go ahead and call this vendor and have this handled. He's still the lead. This person can help us in administrative workload with that.
I think your point is well taken. All these things say assist with, so I take that then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you get what
Thank
you needed?
I did, thank you.
All right. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay, I would be looking for action tonight on this then, for these proposed job descriptions. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion to take action on the proposed job, the descriptions for full-time and part-time PSOs and fire administration clerk. Basically for approval for advertising for the full-time PSOs, part-time PSOs, and the fire administrative clerk. I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried, 5-0. And then, Director, you have one last item on here?
Yeah, the last item is 11D, discussion of possible action on the capital purchase of replacement SUV vehicles. In the 2020 capital budget, two of the capital items call for the replacement of two of the marked police units. Car 2, which has 96,645 miles, and Car 7, which has 102,562. Fleet Manager Reynolds tracks those vehicles pretty closely, and he concurs that they both need to be replaced from what's called frontline service. So we'd be replacing them with, for the first time ever, two Ford hybrid SUVs. Ford recently came out with hybrids. It's not the hybrid that you think is a standard hybrid. We actually traveled down to Maryland, right? And actually, Charlie and Lieutenant Thomas had a chance of driving them on a proving ground down at Montgomery County PD. They actually have more torque and better pickup than your standard SUV. In fact, they just take off. So we're not worried about the performance angle. And the presentation that was given says that they are a lot better at gas consumption. Interestingly enough, this new technology basically is battery gas operated. And the gas only basically turns on to run the batteries, essentially. So you charge the batteries, when it gets below 70%, the engine comes on. And when it gets below 30%, the engine comes on. When it gets to 70% charge, the engine goes off and you don't electric power. So we think that they've gotten really good reports from the Michigan State Police, who are the country's leading edge in testing police vehicles, the interceptors. So we're really anxious to try it. We think they're a little more costly, but when you take a look at what's the benefit and the efficiency over time, it becomes less costly than a standard US engine. So we'd like to move in that direction. The quote is from Hoffman Ford. Hoffman Ford also has, and it's from 410-730, so there's money within the budget for both of them. The difference in the cost will be for some of the upfitting equipment, as we do every year for these. And if the board agrees, it's a CoStar contract, so there's no bidding necessary. It's purchased under Hoffman Ford's CoStar, which is attached also with the quote. And also discussion and consultation with Fleet Management Reynolds. We are also requesting to retain Part 2 used in the secondary capacity. We've had a number of times when we've had vehicles out of service for service reasons, when one vehicle was, this is going to happen again, when the Cumberland incident, we had a car out of service for a period of time. We are really taxed with step-up cars that operate in the secondary. Essentially, it's already outfitted. It's not going to push hard against the mileage in order to do that. We're going to be running down the court at District Justice's office or something else. It's not put in effect as a first-aid car. So we'd just like to retain Part 2 if we could.
So if we added that as part of our action tonight, I guess we would have to take action on retaining Car 2 as well? Because that's not listed that way. We wouldn't have to do that. So I just have a question on that.
Sure.
I guess I see the value in it, obviously, from what you're describing. I feel like I'd be remiss not to ask, how much did we budget for Car 2 that we would get in, I guess, okay, in income? Because, I mean, anytime we dispose of an item, we usually get rid of it, and there's got to be a budgeted item, because we're going to lose that in the budget.
I don't know which car is which, but one is budgeted to return $4,000, the other one $8,000. So it'd be between $4,000 and $8,000. Do you know which one was the higher one?
Okay, well.
Yeah, we have 12, Mr. Reynolds is here, and he probably knows. Yeah, there's 12,000 budgeted for both vehicles.
Okay.
So this is.
Yeah,
Charlie?
probably the 4,000 estimate would probably be for Car 2. The 8,000 for it varies depending what people would want in their fours or the condition they are in. Our condition, our cars are good.
Okay.
So it varies on what people's looking for and who's bidding on them.
So, I mean, I guess the question is, Ed indicated he's going to be for this. Is the board for retaining Car 2? I guess would be the question. Okay. I mean, I'm for it. Certainly.
Mr. President, I have just a question for Dave on that. So Car 2 would not be in service at all times then?
No. We have them broken down into primary, secondaries. The primary cars are the ones that are put front line out normally in street patrol. So this would not be a primary car. It uses a secondary car if one of the primaries is out of service, or a secondary for officers, because we get really kind of loaded up on like Wednesdays, which are public defender days. So sometimes there's just not enough cars. So it would be helpful to have a secondary vehicle that the only purpose is for the officer to drive down to the District Justice's office and drive back again. Because many of them come in off-duty in overtime capacity for those hearings, and this basically compensates for that.
Do you currently have any secondary vehicles right now?
The two pickup trucks. kind of ride in secondary capacity, but they're utilized. There's times when you don't have much outside, that's not being used, even in secondary capacity. So this just adds another piece.
And then lastly, the cars, when they're not being used, are they stored in the Public Works facility or
They're
right out back?
They're out back.
Okay, so weather, wear and tear will be just like any other car that's just out there?
Exactly. There's no difference.
Do we typically take like lights and those types of equipment from a car that we're replacing and putting? So we won't be able to do that this time with the cheap car.
No, but, and I'm not sure, it depends upon, what happens unfortunately is with new cars and new manufactured vehicles, sometimes the old stuff doesn't fit with the new stuff, so I'm not sure, I know that.
Planned obsolescence.
Charlie's looked at that, I'm not sure what the.
Yeah, with these new cars, Dave referring to, they did, sure enough, this year for 2020, Ford did think about that. So the only thing they have to, is the side pieces for the cages where the rear doors wrap around, is really basically the only thing that we have to buy extra. And the light bars pretty much would be retrofitted on.
But if we're keeping car 2, we won't have that equipment to move to the new car.
Correct, we will not.
Are we buying 1 or 2 cars?
The two new, the SUVs, the two new SUVs, we do two.
Okay.
Two hybrids.
Okay.
So I understand from a budgeting perspective, the 2 cars are budgeted for, but there will be an additional cost that wasn't budgeted for to.
I think that budgeted amount was included in cars.
But I'm saying if we retain car 2 and instead of now being able to move the lights and whatnot from that car to the new car, will there be an additional cost that wasn't budgeted to outfit the new car?
I don't think there's an additional cost that wasn't budgeted.
Okay.
I think when we've had a car for a period of time, sometimes moving equipment doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you buy new stuff anyway.
So it's factored in and
Right.
Yeah, I think we just, Leon just reminded me that the new light bars and cage were all in the quoted, the budget, for replacement for everything new.
So they're fully equipped.
Yes.
Right.
If I may ask a question, are you planning on having all this equipment on this spare car if it's going to be used for, running to the DJ's office and running,
It'll have to have radios and lights and everything else.
fully equipped then?
Because it could be used in a secondary replacement capacity too. So you wouldn't want to pull radio out and then put radio back in.
So, Mr. President, while
Yes.
we're on this, we have the information, the money, the dollar information here, but I don't see more, this is only one vehicle. We're going to take this twice.
They're two of the same vehicles,
Two of the same vehicle.
All right, so we have-
41,260,
Yes.
or 82,520 for both. And the total budget's 104, so there is a buffer period, there's buffer money to get up
To
to
take care of the upfitting,
All right.
and that covers the upfitting.
Right.
Well,
least
I'd make a motion that we, go ahead.
No, I just didn't itemize that.
No, I got it. Make a motion that we purchase execute the capital purchase of replacement SUV vehicles as provided with the Director Hall's memo and price rundown.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing, yes.
Mr. President, would we be looking for an additional motion to retain car 2, or would that?
We don't need to do so.
Wonderful.
Yep,
Thank you.
we discussed it, and we're going to retain car 2.
Yep,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, calling for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Is there, I want to just quickly go back to C and just say thanks. We went through a tough budget process in 2019 for the 2020 budget. And, one of the pieces of discussion was talking about the PSO program and integrating, if we can, some part-time. And I want to tell you, from my perspective, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody to some degree up here, the enthusiasm that you're showing to actually roll that out for us and make that work. Very grateful for that, because it's something that really stuck with all of us. And if we can make that work, it's better for better for all of us in general. So hopefully it works out for you guys. in the end, but thank you so much, really, for
No,
that.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thank the board for their support.
Yep.
And thanks
Is there
for-
any other
thanks
questions for?
bearing with me tonight
Yes,
while, thanks for
absolutely.
bearing with me while I, lost my voice.
Any
Bear
other
with him while
questions
he
for the
growls
director?
at you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the director? Okay.
Mr. President, under public safety, I have an additional item I'd like to bring up with permission.
Sure.
So a lot of what we've discussed, both in the ad hoc committee and throughout my campaign, was the importance of school safety. And one of the things we had discussed was the possibility of a school resource officer at Cedar Cliff High School. It's a top priority, I think, for parents and anyone who has a student at Cedar Cliff, or like myself, my mom goes to Cedar Cliff every day to teach, and I have their safety in mind as well as the students. And to that end, I would like to inquire as to whether the public safety director would be able to pull together some information for us, and maybe be prepared with some presentation for us on a school resource officer. I know we've had some preliminary discussions, but I would like to move forward in that regard. And on the same vein, I've spoken with representatives from Senator Regan's office, and Senator Regan's been a force in the state with bringing funds and school resource officers, and he's been really out in front on public safety. He's aware of grants through PCCD that we've discussed as well, and would like to assist us in facilitating a school resource officer in West Shore School District at Cedar Cliff in particular, which is in our township. And he's also expressed a willingness, Senator Regan has, to host a roundtable discussion with township officials and staff and law enforcement and community representatives, as well as West Shore School District staff and school board members, to discuss school resource officer programs and models that we might want to model after, and to facilitate that discussion with our community. So, Mr. President, it would be my interest to move forward with exploring that possibility with the support of the board here, if the public safety director would be able to guide us in the coming weeks for that.
Is that information, I mean, the discussions come up even in the meetings in the ad hoc.
Right.
Is that information ready, like in the next month or so, for you to maybe just educate us on what that means?
Together. We actually have pulled together some statistics internally on calls at the various schools. As the board's aware, even from the ad hoc, that, I was part of putting together a school resource officer program at a former employee of mine. So we can pull that together pretty quickly, I would imagine. If the board wants a presentation at a future meeting, we can talk generically about it. And as Commissioner Kutz and I have talked, the board would certainly need the support of the school district moving forward. So that's a whole nother consideration to look at. It's not something unilaterally we would just do here, especially with the grants. So I think that's however that outreach occurs, and it's up to how the board would want to handle that.
And I would encourage to take us up on Senator Regan's offer to host a roundtable. I think it'd be great to get everyone at the same table, school district included, and certainly at your direction if you would find that to be an appropriate step.
Well, I certainly would, if the board would be agreeable to the kicking off that conversation. So what I would ask Commissioner Kutz is if you and maybe can work with the manager, with Dave, or through the two of them.
Dean?
Maybe the first step is to have the information for us, including whatever grants might be available and what steps might have to be taken, whose responsibility based on the school district and all that, so that we can understand what it means.
Right.
And then, yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
I'm all for that. I'm all for school safety, and I understand that Tom's mother worked for Cedar Cliff, but you're right, get the information up front, first of all, because the board doesn't want to step on the school board's toes, because we have no authority over the school board. And, so we don't want to be stepping on toes.
Yeah,
And it's something we want to be invited into, not push into.
Well, and that's what I think the purpose of a roundtable discussion would be to
Exactly,
facilitate that
but
discussion.
let's do it gently and not cause waves.
Well, I think that's the point of having these preliminary discussions with members of the school, West Shore School community as well. So certainly looking forward to a productive discussion moving forward.
I think it's helpful, too, to understand what a school resource officer's role is in a school. And there's the National Association of School Resource Officers called NASRO. They certify school resource officers. So be happy to talk to the board or whatever venue you want about that and what that training piece is and what they call the triad. So it's not just about, one of the things that's looked upon is that school resource officers are there for handling violent incidents, and that's their sole role. And it's not. They get involved in counseling roles in some ways and a lot of other interactions and relationship building within the schools. So I agree 100%. It's, we have to tread delicately because that's not our territory, but we at least have to have the support of the board even to go down that road.
Well, from an educator's standpoint, having an authority like that to be visible and get to know the kids and the kids get to know that person is a very positive thing.
And the timing's good now, too, because there's legislation, being worked on and coming through, and I think Senator Regan's been spearheading a lot of it. In fact, he mentioned it to me over the weekend, I think the timing's good for us to get this dialogue going, and like, we do here in Lower Allen, sometimes we stay ahead of things, and that's a good thing. So I think this is good. So maybe in the next month or 6 weeks, we can have something come up on an agenda. That'd be good. Super. All right, is that it, Director? For you? Okay. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reynolds is in the audience tonight in case you have any questions for him about any of the next three items. They are purchases of items that are in the 2020 budget. The first one would be a Ford Escape to replace one of our CED vehicles, which is a 2004 Ford Explorer. And again, this is a budgeted item. We'd be looking for possible action tonight if the board so moved.
Mr. President, I would make the motion that we purchase a Ford Escape for community and economic development to replace a 2004 Ford Explorer, and this is a budgeted item.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Tom, the 2004 Ford Explorer, is that one of the pickups?
I pick up with a cap on it.
It's actually a Ford
Yeah.
It's actually a Ford Explorer Sport Track, so it does have little capabilities of a little pickup truck with a bed in the back.
It's a four-seater with an open bed. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
It has a cap on it. But
Yeah, the cap.
It is a
Yeah.
cap.
Call for the question.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. The second item is the purchase of a John Deere mower. This would replace a 2007 John Deere mower, which is currently used in the parks. I believe this is if I'm not incorrect, Charlie, this is a larger deck to cut more
it's a
grass at once.
54-inch deck, correct. With the capabilities of putting this, we have a snow blower mounted to it we use for our sidewalk maintenance here in the township. We use it for that, too.
And I understand this item's the one that came in right at budget, right? It
Pretty
was one
close.
that came in under, the first one came in under, right? And this
Correct.
one came in right at budget. Okay.
Well, I make a motion that we purchase a John Deere mower for parks to replace a 2007 John Deere mower. This is a budgeted item.
I have a motion on the question.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item I have in the final purchase here would be the purchase of two large snow plows to replace older snow plows. These items are also budgeted in the Highway Aid Fund. And I guess Charlie can describe the snowplows if he
Yeah,
could.
the best way I can describe it, you think of Mickey Mouse. The Mickey Mouse here, the wings on the side of the plows will be higher, so the snow can be thrown up over the, in any case where the snow is piled up deeper, actually throws it up over the banks higher, get it out of the way. So we're not crowding ourselves into the road with the snow. Actually, we'll be able to get it lifted up higher and throw it out of the way.
Charlie, it won't be easier for those guys to throw the snow back onto the sidewalk.
That's, it, well, no, that, you could, of course, but these are, the way they're made, they actually fold down, so the snow's forced to the ground more so than straight out.
Mr. President, I will make a motion to purchase 2 budgeted snowplows in the Highway Aid Fund, and thanks, Charlie, for being here and for describing everything and your expertise.
Second.
And I have a motion from Thomas and a second from Ed. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Charlie, just one quick thing. Vicky, no, you don't have to come up. Vicky and I, this is the first year we raked leaves to the curb and didn't use all of our leaves in the garden or wherever. We decided to rake a bunch 2 or 3 different times. And that leaf picker, man, that does a good job. I mean, that's the one that we recently acquired, right? Correct. That thing is amazing. I mean, I saw them out there the one day, and it's good. And I don't know how it was around the rest of the township, but they came by frequently and did a good job picking up the leaves. So, yep. So, thank you. All right, Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you. Final thing is a mixed bag of news that has to do with our health insurance and the Affordable Care Act. The good news is that they finally repealed the Cadillac tax, which was a suggested 40% excise tax on health insurance plans that cost over a certain dollar amount. It was never implemented. It's been kicked further down the road every year. They finally repealed it, so it's not something we have to worry about anymore. We do have, our health insurance program is fairly high premium, so we most certainly would have been liable for the tax had it not been repealed and if it would have been implemented. So that's the good news. The bad news is that the PCOR, what they call the PCOR fee, which is called the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research fee that they attach to all employer-sponsored health care. What it's supposed to do is it's supposed to be used for medical research into preventative-type medicine, and that was supposed to expire in 2020, but they have chosen to extend it for another 10 years. It costs us about $350 a year. So it's not terribly expensive, but we will, yes. Yeah, it's $2.45 per participant, and we have 136 participants in our health program. So, yeah, it's not much money, but not surprising they chose to extend it. Like the Johnstown flood tax, we're still paying it.
How much did we budget to pay for the Cadillac tax, or haven't we ever budgeted?
No,
that?
we've never had to budget for it.
It was pushed out,
It's always
right?
been kicked down the
Okay.
road so far that it wasn't an immediate concern.
Got it. All right. Anything else?
I have nothing else tonight.
Anything else? Okay, we'll start with commissioner reports. We'll start down with Aaron. Nothing tonight? Okay. Anything else? You're good. You're going to save your voice. Mr. Solicitor?
Just one item for executive session on the Piper Stormwater appeal.
Okay.
Nothing in open session.
Okay. Commissioner Holtzman? Nothing tonight? Commissioner Black?
I would like to acknowledge Captain Leon Crone's 10-plus years as president of the PA Police Accreditation Coalition. Did I get that right, Leon?
Yes, recently gave that up and passed it on to the next generation.
Smart man.
I don't know if we're clapping for giving it up or for your time served.
I would also like to acknowledge our officers that as a result of their No Shave Month have donated to the Pink Hands of Hope. They have also participated in handing out coats to kids at Hillside Elementary School and Shop with a Cop with kids of lesser means at Walmart.
Okay, that's great.
Wow.
Sure, that's great.
All right.
Uh,
Good job, LAPD.
And also, I'd like to congratulate Officer Alex Militek, who was elected by our officers, right, Leon? For his outstanding work with a lot of single-handed apprehensions and work this recent time. And Captain Deven for his election to PA Emergency Service Council. Did I get that right? Close. That's it.
Commissioner Shin?
Yes, I had the pleasure of attending a Lower Allen Development Authority meeting back in December, and I didn't know how to ask the question until we got the minutes to be in our packet. I'm interested in knowing about, and the other reason I wasn't sure to talk about it was I couldn't remember whether we were in executive session or live. So obviously we were not in executive session. Can you explain, or somebody explain, the Capital City Commons condominiums?
So it's a commercial condominium. So when we bought the Bonton, it's actually a condo, because it's one parcel with several units. So it was a Bonton, Borders Books, Bonefish Grill,
Oh, so
Texas
they're,
Roadhouse.
legally they're considered condominiums?
Correct.
Okay.
And so there's
I
a
see.
condo there
All right.
that then operates the, so technically, for all those years, Bonton was the majority shareholder, so they owned everything, so when we
Well,
bought
I
it.
sat there thinking condos.
Yeah, I mean.
When the Lower Allen Township Development Authority bought it, then now we're the
All right.
owner.
All right, was not condos as I was considering them.
No, condo is in just a method of ownership.
Ownership, yes, and that common, yeah.
I
common.
would just like to, Mr. President, one more time congratulate our manager as having received the Capital City Council of Governments Perry Albert Award. Perry was, you probably didn't know this, Perry, when I was president of the West Shore Council of Governments, Perry was my vice president. And they got to know him very well, and he grew that cog. It was, we were rubbing nickels together to get some sparks, to try to keep it together. And Perry really did a lot of work. So congrats, Tom, again.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There wasn't a lot of time at the banquet to speak about Perry, but I remember Perry very well when he was a supervisor of Fairview Township. And Perry and I had a lot of good conversations. He was a good source of advice and wisdom, having been in local government for so long. And I miss Perry quite a bit, and to stand there and hold an award that was named after him was a pretty special part of my career, my professional career. So,
Well, you deserve
yeah,
it.
thank you.
That's it, Mr. President.
All right, Commissioner Cook.
Well, Rick, you stole my thunder on the first item I have. Wanted to as well congratulate you, Tom. I regrettably was unable to attend the dinner, but was informed of the surprise, and I hope it stayed that way and you were surprised at it. So again, congratulations. I knew coming into the board that we have an outstanding staff and an outstanding leadership, and that's the award is just a testament to that as well. A couple of other items, Mr. President. First one is yesterday I attended an event at Sheepford Road Bridge, and I had a chance to walk around the bridge and speak to some residents about their concerns. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of them for speaking with me, taking the time to make your concerns known. We welcome all the information that we're able to get so we can come to an informed decision when action is necessary. So I appreciate that. Secondly, and John Eby typically does the Yellow Breaches updates, but him not being here today, I'm pleased to share that there will be a riparian buffer project in our township coming up in April, and what that will be is a lot of trees being planted on the backside of Allendale along the Yellow Breaches, and should help with some of the issues and long-term longevity of the Yellow Breaches watershed. So I'm excited for that, and I'll have, or John or I will have more information for that for anyone who's interested in attending. That should be a fun event. And lastly, Mr. President, this weekend I will attend the Pennsylvania Municipal League Newly Elected Officials Conference in State College, and anticipate reporting back. I look forward to getting to know some of the other newly elected officials and learning, getting my feet wet a little bit more about what it is to be a township commissioner. So I'll report back as well on that. So that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
I have nothing further tonight.
Tina? Nothing? Director?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Dan?
Just one quick note, this coming Thursday is the scheduled bid opening for the Gettysburg Road relocation project, so hopefully we'll have some news at the next meeting, possibly some action on that.
Okay. Anybody in the audience tonight have anything further to share? I would just say congratulations to the manager again. I was at that dinner, and I knew it was coming. There's something a little funny with it is the organizers of it had Mrs. Vernow secretly in the wings and brought her in, and they did a great job keeping it from Tom. In fact, we did a good job, Aaron, keeping it from Tom, that he was even going to receive the award. And then they brought his wife in, and he didn't know, and so he's sitting at our table, and I'm trying to block because they sat her at the next table over, which I don't understand why they did that. But they did. So I mentioned to Commissioner Holtzman, I said, can you just kind of put your arm up so if he looks over in that direction, and then I'll distract him. And we had it all good till there was one point, Tom's just sitting there and he looks over and he's just like, and he said, what the is my wife doing here? And I said, just ignore it. He goes, okay. So he did, he ignored it. He did good for about 20 minutes before they gave him the award. But anyway.
No, before he got up, he looked over at me and he says, hey, you thought I was going to let it go.
Well, yeah, because I said, I said, because you said, just relax, sit down. I said, no, I got to find out why she's here. And you said, no, just let it roll. Believe me, it won't hurt.
Yes.
And that's so I was looking at the program, and I saw the Perry Albert Award on there. I went, oh, I think I know what this is about. That's when I looked at Commissioner Holtzman and said, I wasn't going to let it go. My brain doesn't work that way.
But yeah.
So,
in all seriousness, being there and seeing you receive that award, and from somebody who just hasn't been around, both in this environment or even in the township or the county that long, I can tell you, seeing that and seeing how your peers and the people in that environment respect you, we're very fortunate here in Lower Island Township to have you. You care about the people, you care about the issues and everything that we're faced with, and so thank you very much for everything you do for us and our residents here in the township. The only other thing I'll bring up tonight is, of course, I drive by the Bonton site all the time. It's just so exciting just seeing it. You know, if you could put a fast forward and put a camera on it, see it rolling, you'd see this kind of like, and then, you know, this eventually, right? That has got to be one of the cleanest commercial construction projects I've ever seen, if you consider it's rubble, right? But they did a good job, I think, keeping everything compartmentalized, and they worked there on Sundays, I think. I mean, I was like, why is that thing moving, you know, these devices? But they were there to really get that cleaned up. So I hope that moves along and that we can start, when is that projected to be built? The hotel.
end of the demolition contract is the end of February, and so you'll see the rubble continue to get smaller, but then don't forget that there's still a foundation underneath.
Mm.
So they're still going to be
Oh, they're gonna have to
jacking
pull
and
that
then
up,
they'll be
okay.
crushing all the rock on site.
So
they're
through the
still-
winter, they'll be doing that?
Right,
and
so
then-
they have to be done by the end of February, so I have every bit of confidence in them.
Okay.
And,
Well,
and
thanks.
then
It's
should
going to
we
be exciting to see that
start to
emerge.
go back up, yeah.
Yeah, it really is, so. That is really all I had. We are going to go into executive session, so do we have to come back for anything tonight?
Do they need to appoint, they don't need to appoint the bargaining team in an open meeting?
Do we need to do that in public formally? Okay, so we'll have to come back? Okay, we probably will. So I'm going to recess to executive session, and we'll be back. Calling this meeting back to order, Lower Allen Township Board of Commissioners. I understand there might be a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to name our collective bargaining team for this year. I'd like to include in our team Township Manager Tom Verneau, Assistant Manager